Okay. Well, okay, Zok the Heilige Mishnah. I believe we're up to the new parak. The Elu Magalchen b'Moed. Who is allowed to take a haircut on Chol Moed? Zok the Gemara. Haba mi Medina Sayam. Someone who was out of town and he came back from Medina Sayam. And Rashi says, why is that a reason to be able to take a haircut? He couldn't take a haircut wherever he was. He had to take it before. The Beis Shivya, or if he just got released from jail. Why couldn't he take it before? There's a very interesting. Is it Tortus? A very interesting Tortus about that. Yeah, Tortus says, someone who gets out of jail cannot take a haircut before Yom Tov. Why? Either they don't allow you to take haircuts in jail, or even if they're going to let you take a haircut in jail, it's not gishmak to take a haircut in jail. It's a very interesting thing. I assume if you're in jail, you don't want a murderer behind your back with a razor shaving your neck, because it's not gishmak to have some murderer behind you shaving your neck with a razor. Otherwise, I'm not sure why would it not be gishmak to get a haircut in jail. Okay. And someone gets out of jail, like we learned. And somebody who was in cherem, who cannot take a haircut, and he got a heter, and we'll see what that means. Doesn't mean he got a special heter that now his cherem is over. What does it mean? In general, every menuda kam yom tov gets a reprieve, gets a pass from his nidui for the duration of the yom tov. And if somebody made a neder not to take a haircut, and then he was shoyal by a chacham, and he was matir a neder. So you might ask, why is that something that he couldn't have done before? Why didn't he go ask the chacham before yom tov for a heter? Why did he wait until yom tov? So these are all the things that are going to get discussed. The hanazir, a nazir who's not allowed to take a haircut, and if his nazir is over, now he can take a haircut. And we'll see about the mitzvah what that means. Who is now becoming tahar. And the following list are people who are allowed to wash their clothing on Chol Moed. Someone who comes from Medina Sayam and they didn't have laundry wherever he was, in Beis Shivya, all these same people who were not able to wash their clothing before. And the menuda, who the chacham will matter for him, you know what else you're allowed to wash on Chol Moed? Hand towels, and the shmatas that barbers use to protect people's clothing from getting full of hair, which never works, by the way. And bath towels that absorb the water. Hazovin, Vazavois, Zovin and Zovis, Midas and Yoldois. And there are those who take this out of the girsa, but if it's in the girsa, it's because they get their clothing dirty. And anybody who was tamei and is becoming tar on Yom Tov on Chol Moed, mutar, they're mutar. The shar kalodam asurin, but everybody else, it's also for them to wash laundry on Chol Moed. Let's see the head of the Gemara. The shar kalodam, my time asurin. What is the problem with taking a haircut on Yom Tov? And what is the problem with bathing, washing your clothing on Yom Tov? The Gemara Keditnan. Anshe Mishmar, the Anshe Maimid, Asurin L'Saper, people who are in the Mishmar and the Maimid, which means it's their week to watch over their karbonis in the Beis HaMikdash. Those people are not allowed to take haircuts. Ulechabes, they're not allowed to wash their clothing during that entire week that they're on duty, except Uvechamishi Mutarin Mipnei Kvoid HaShabbos. On Thursday, they're allowed to also cover Shabbos. My time, what is the reason why the Anshe Mishmar and Anshe Maimid are not allowed to wash their clothing and are not allowed to take haircuts? It's kadei shelo yichnesu b'mishmarton kisheheden menuvalim. It's because we want people to have taken haircuts before. So if we don't allow them to take haircuts on or during, they'll make sure to be prepared before and to take haircuts before. That will have the effect of everyone being freshly laundered and freshly haircutted before the mishmar. Hachanami, so too by Yom Tov, kadesh lo yikansu l'regel kisheheden menuvalim. If you're not allowed to take haircut on Yom Tov, so you're going to take one before. That means everybody's going to come with a fresh haircut to Yom Tov. Let's see Rashi. Uman de misrashel v'lo yilach mekami regel. Someone who let it go and he didn't take a haircut before Yom Tov. Umati zman and it came to Yom Tov. Alayu l'galeich v'regel. And now it's time for them to take haircuts because they need a haircut. On those people, the Chmir Rabbanon, since they weren't mezars themselves to take the haircut before the regal, so that they shouldn't be menuvel with long overgrown hair on Yom Tov. If they would be able to take haircuts on Chalamoid, they wouldn't make an effort to take a haircut before Yom Tov. And then if nichnasan l'regel kishen menuvalim.
Yosy?
Yes.
So according to that Svar, has nothing to do with malacha then.
Correct. Nothing to do with malacha.
Okay. Doesn't that come into it as well in terms of exertion, all everything?
That's a very, very good kasha. And Tortus discusses it, and I want to learn this Tortus. It's important Tortus. I just want to speak out something that Rabbi from Netsky went to. I don't understand. We want that people should come into Yom Tov menuvalim, but we don't care. Like you're supposed to cut your nails before Chalamoid, but we don't care on Yom Tov if it gets all messed up. So he says it's like a chasana. When you come into the chasana, when you walk into the hall, everything is set up, everything is perfect. Usually the videographer actually goes and videos the tables before the wedding, so you see how everything is perfectly set up. Within 2 minutes after the crowd gets in, the thing becomes a disaster. Everything gets moved around. Yet, when it starts, when the chasana starts, you want everything to be beautiful. You want everything to be perfect, and that's how Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky I'll explain this story. Let's see Tortus. Tortus, I think I understand Tortus right, but Tortus says something very interesting. We'll get there in a second. Let's see Tortus. Yerushalmi Masha. Yerushalmi the Gemara asks Akasha. Hani lama hetiru. Why were they matter this group of people, like for Shenishal al-Midroy or a Menuda? Balai Posha, they themselves were Presheya. Why didn't either the Menuda come and do tshuva so he should get out of his nidu, or the person who's been Shelon's nether, let him come before Yom Tov? Why is he considered someone who's allowed to take a haircut on Yom Tov? Umishani, and the Gemara in Yerushalmi answers, they need to be pachas mishloshim yom. First of all, even if a guy wants to do tshuva, nevertheless, once they put him in a nidui, it has to last 30 days. So now we understand how it wasn't his fault. What about nishal l'chacham? There was no chacham available, and the chacham came to town on Chalamoid. Inami lefnei moed leimotzu by Pesach. Or maybe they didn't find, you can't just be showing nether. You have to come up with a reason why. Had you known A, B, and C, I would have never made this nether. And he couldn't come up with anything. And finally on Chalamoid, he thought of something. Now Tortus says, no, we're talking about Megalchin. So Tortus says, now Giluch HaRosh Nami Oseh B'Moed. Cutting your head, cutting the hair of your head is Oseh B'Moed. Dama B'Gemara, Shalo Yichnusu L'Regel Menuvalim. Ve'ein Lach Nivel Gadol Mizeh. There's no greater evil than having wild hair. Then Tortus says, maybe, and this is touching on what Dubi said, maybe the fact that you shouldn't come in menuvalim is only referring to maybe washing your begodim or trimming your hair. But a full haircut on your head, which is exactly what Dubi raised. I feel a b'makam. The shar giluach and other types of giluach, the voy gemara my time asurin, find a giluach shall yipui. The havelach l'mishul tzarchamoy. So you see, Tortus is saying a full haircut of his head. That's a malacha, like Dubi suggested. the giluch that we're talking about here is the trim. It's not 100% clear to me exactly what the two haircuts are. But giluch of kol harosh, Tortus suggests, might be a malacha, might be usher no matter what. And Tortus is suggesting that the giluch that we're talking about here, which is only usher because we want it to be done before Yom Tov, is a giluch shal yifur, which is a trim. I'm not sure. Does the article say anything about this? But there's definitely a distinction in Tortus. I'm just not exactly clear what that is. Anybody? No? But this is exactly what Dugi raised, that maybe Giluch should be considered a malach. Okay, so let's see the Gemara Vayter. Boy Reb Zera. Reb Zera had a shayla. What happens if it was Avdalai Aveda Erev Hareg? You had something, normally you would have taken your haircut on Erev Yom Tov, but something severe happened in your life that means you just simply didn't have time. So I assume Avdullah Aveda doesn't necessarily mean if you lost an Aveda. What if a family member was in the hospital and you had to be Isaac with them in the hospital? Something happened beyond your control that didn't allow you the time to take a haircut on the Erev Yom Tov. What is halacha? Do you say kiven the honest mutter, since it was completely out of your hands, therefore it's mutter? Or dilma kiven the muchamilsa, since nobody knows, it's not written all over your forehead that you had a situation that rendered it impossible for you to take a haircut Erev Yom Tov. You don't have that. Therefore, it would not be allowed. Rashi says, not everybody knows your personal business, exactly what happened to you on Erev Yom Tov. What are people going to say? He bedavka waited to Chalamoy to take his haircut. So that is the shayla. Dr. Omar Baye. I'm sorry. So Omar Baye, of course it should be also. Because if you allow a special exception to a person who was very tied up on Erev Yom Tov, Yomer, people are going to say, Kol asarika asur and sarika baitos mutarin. The halacha is that when you make matzah, you're not allowed to make a special form in the matzah. You know why? Because while you're patchkitting with the dough, to make this form, the dough can become chametz. But baitos, he was a baker who had pans that had forms built into them. So it took him no extra time whatsoever to create special breads that had special forms in them. And therefore, for him, it should be mutter. But it wasn't allowed for him either. You know why? Because Yoimu Kol Asarika Nasurin and Srike Baitus Matarin, people are going to say that everything is also, any type of form is going to be also. Punkt, his is mutter. Such distinctions, and they don't have that Baitus has special tools that make it go faster. So we don't make such distinctions. Therefore, even if somebody was an onus on Erev Yom Tov, since it's not obvious to everybody around him that was the case, he's still subject to the Isser to take a haircut and to wash his clothing on Yom Tov. According to you, if someone only has one beged, he's allowed to wash on a Chalamoid. How does anybody know someone in the laundry are doing laundry? Do I know exactly how many sets of clothing he has? I have no way of knowing. So Hasam Nami, why is it mutter? Why don't we say Yom Kol Asarika Nasur and Shrika Batus Mutar? Zok Gemara, over there, everybody knows when he's doing laundry that he only has one set of clothing. You know why? Because if he's in his trench coat while he's doing laundry and you see the hair on his legs below his trench coat, then it's clear that there's nothing beneath it, right? You know, if he's in a laundromat washing his clothes looking like that, someone's going to call the police, without a doubt. But whatever the case is, there it's very clear to anyone seeing that this person has need to wash his clothing on Yom Tov because he only has one set of clothing. So there it's machichala. Reb Ashi Masni, Reb Ashi had quoted the following scenario. Boy Reb Zeir, what about she'avad lo yaveda ever? What if the barber had a private emergency that he had to run to the hospital, he was busy, right? Now the whole city knows that, and there's only one barber in the city. Now the whole city knows that this barber had an issue. Why? Because everybody wanted to go take a haircut in Arab Yom Tov, and he wasn't around. So he's a guy who it isn't Mukhcha. Everybody will know that he had an issue. So would he be able to take a haircut? Mahu. Do you say Kibin the Omenhu? Since he's an Omen, so therefore everybody knows that he had an issue because everybody would have encountered him or would have tried to encounter him in Arab Yom Tov and would have seen he's not around. It's not as clear as the guy washing the laundry in his trench coat. It's not as clear as those, and therefore he wouldn't be able to, Dr. Gemara, take it. So Tortus raises an interesting shayla, and Tortus says here at the third to the bottom, Tortus, the shayla is only about the barber. What about Bnei Ayir? If the barber wasn't there Erev Yom Tov, so nobody was able to take a haircut. So maybe everybody should be able to take a haircut on Chalamoid. So the Gemara, Abu Bnei here, even if there is no other barber, loy miboyle. Therefore, sure, it's also for them to take haircuts. The pshita dasur, for others it'll be pasha that it's also because it's only the barber that everybody knows. The barber had an issue. Nobody knows about you. Yesh l'stabik Tosfos says the Suffolk in Mechalav and Nisrapa. What if he was very ill and therefore he couldn't take a haircut before Yom Tov? In Nisrapa and he got better on Chalamoid. In Mutter legalech, is that called mucha milsa? If he got sick, maybe people know about it. People say tell him, like we learned that Mitzvah has to say tamei. You have to share your tsar so people should know about it. So maybe that's considered something that's mucha milsa. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara. Zog to Gemara. I'm sorry, where was that? Medina Siyam. A guy comes back from Medina Siyam. So the question is, just because a guy came back from Medina Siyam, that's a reason for him to be able to take a haircut at Chalamoid. Our Mishnah, which allows someone who came back from Medina Siyam, is not consistent with Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Habam Medina Siyam lo yigalech. Somebody who comes back from an overseas trip does not have a right to take a haircut at Chalamoid. And Shiyotza Shaloi B'Rishus means it's not that he didn't ask the Rosh Hashiva Rishus if he can go away for Shabbos. What it means is, Kloimers of Rashi, Hoyel V'Layotza B'Rishus Acher. He didn't go forced by something that it wasn't his decision. Someone forced him to go. That didn't happen. So therefore, he voluntarily went away. It's his problem. He should have got back earlier. Elabarotzen Atzma. He went because he wanted to go on his own. Lav Onusu. That's not called an onus, and therefore he may not take a haircut. I remember there was once a Shalom Zocher by one of the Reichman Einiklach in the boat shul going back to the mid-90s. And I remember Betty Reichman, Sr., was sitting there. It was his great nephew. And Moshe Reichman walked in 2 hours late because he had just landed from Europe. He had just landed a half hour before Shabbos, and he ended up having to walk from Kiel and the 401, he had to walk home, so he arrived late. Someone was talking about, wow. Betty Rackman says, you know what I would have done? I would have left Thursday. Victor and I remember that because we also once got dropped off at Yorkdale, which wasn't bad.
And he went and made the deal.
Yosy, if we had left Thursday, you wouldn't have the story that you didn't want to tell the other day.
Well, we asked the Rav before we got on the plane in Chicago if we're allowed to get on the plane. And the Rav told us if you're scheduled to land before Shkia, then you could get on the plane. And in fact, we landed long before Shkia. We were able to come all the way to Yorkdale. What?
Yeah, in those days, traffic was less. Now you have to land before Chatzos.
But we weren't staying in Chicago. We were connecting through Chicago. So I'm sorry, what was that?
That was back then, but nowadays with traffic and delays, you have to land before Chatzos.
Right. I assure you that the traffic had us on Spilkas from the taxi stand all the way to Yorkdale.
I remember that. Amarava, Loshut Divrei Kol Osir. If the reason why you travel is so that you can get your speedo tan, for sure that's voluntary traveling, and that you would not be able to take a haircut if you arrived back on Chalamoid. But the Mazonis, if you went because you needed to earn money to support your family, Divrei Kol Mutter, there everybody holds that's called a noinus. You have to support your family, and therefore, if you went away for parnasa and you came back on Chalamoid, yes, you would be allowed to take a haircut. Loy nechlaku, where is there a machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama as to whether or not you're allowed to take a haircut? Is Elo laharvicha. You had money, but you wanted to make a business deal to make more money. So it wasn't like if you wouldn't have done this deal, you wouldn't have had food to eat, but you still want to make more money. That's also a shtickle necessity because people have to make more money, right? There's tuitions to pay and there's chasnas to make, right? So Ma'ar Medami like Kolosha. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you traveled on business, but not because you needed the money, because you wanted to make more money, that's like going to get your speedo tan. It's like going out as a tourist. Therefore, it'll be usher. Umar Medami Kilamazonis. And one holds no. So you make a little bit extra money. You have to do that. And therefore, we consider it a forced travel. When you come back, you can take care of it. Well, they don't let you take haircuts because they would have wanted you to take haircuts before you. That's right. That's right. That's right. So if you go into the mikveh and you see a guy with Erev, you see a guy in Chalamot only the wax in the hair, you already know what a speedo tan is going to look like before he goes into the mikveh. Zok to Gemara Vayter. Omar Rabbi Nirin Meisei Gemara. So at this point, the Gemara is saying that the machloikis is only by la'avacha, but everybody agrees that it's usher if you were there as a tourist, if you traveled to be a tourist, and everybody agrees that it's mutter if you traveled because you needed to support your family and get them food for Yom. So Meisvei, Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said, Nirin Divi Rabbi Yehuda, I would agree with Rabbi Yehuda, Kishayotza Shaloi Rishus. If he went out, that didn't need to. With Divi Chachamim, but I also would pass like a Chachamim, Kishayotza Rishus. So, which means Rebbe seems to indicate that they're arguing in all these cases, and my personal opinion is to pass like Rabbi Yehuda in one case and like a Chachamim in the other case. So let's think about this. My Shaloi Rishus. What does Rebbe mean that near in Divi Rabbi Yehuda Kishiyotcha Shaloi Rishus? Ilema Loshut. If it means that he went to travel on a vacation, but Amr Divrei Kalaser. Didn't Rebbe already say that everybody agrees that that's going to be Aser? The Elamazaitis. Elamai, where does he agree with Rabbi Yehuda? Where he went out for Mazainis? Well, Amr Divrei Kalmutter. There we said everyone holds it to mutter. So where is there a place where there's a machloikis where Rebbe could agree with Rabbi Yehuda? Elapshita larvicha. It must be that where is Rebbe saying that I'm agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda when there's a machloikis? It's when someone went out to earn extra money. There, Rabbi Yehuda says it's aser, and that's where Rebbe says I agree with him. So let's look at the next comment that Rebbe said. Near and divrei chachamim kashayacha b'shus. We've run out of options already. My b'shus. Ilemer lemezainis hamur divrei koel muter. Vel harvicha v'amur near and divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So if you're saying they're only arguing in one of the three cases, and Rebbe already says I agree with Rabbi Yehuda in that case, so in which case does Rebbe agree with the chachamim? Rebbe is not expressing his own opinion. Rebbe is expressing the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan. And this is what he said. Nirin divrei Rabbi Yehuda l'Rabbanan kishayotza shaloi b'shus. Even the Rabbanan agree with Rabbi Yehuda, because in fact there is no machloikis if you went as a tourist. Even the Chachamim who argue on Rabbi Yehuda and hold you're allowed to take a haircut, that's if you travel to make money. But if you travel just for fun, Moed, even the Chachamim agree to Rabbi Yehuda. So he's not saying I agree, and there's a machloikis there. The Chachamim agree. And then the near and divrei Rabban Rabbi Yehuda, even Rabbi Yehuda would be mekel kishayotza b'shus when you went because you were forced to go. Because the purpose of your travel was to feed your family. Even Rabbi Yehuda who argues is only arguing if you're going to make more money. So at the end of the day, Rebbe is just explaining the reasoning behind the Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore why they would both agree that you cannot take a haircut if you traveled for a vacation, which was completely optional. And the Rabbanan, doesn't argue with the Rabbanan and agree that you're allowed to if you traveled for feeding your family, which is completely mandatory. But there's only a machloikis if it's leharvicha meaning you travel to make extra money, not money that was absolutely necessary to be earned. Shmuel said, what about a Katan hanoilad b'moed? What if your little icicle, you zoichet have a icicle born on chalamoid, ungevoksim mit hued, right? Because normally babies are not born looking like Sasquatch, right? Normally they're born, they don't have much hair. But imagine a baby's born on chalamoid, and you say, oh, look at this cute little icicle, let's give him a haircut. So the loch is mutter legaleich b'moed. He would be allowed to take a haircut. Why? She'ein loch beis asur in gadol mizeh. There's no better jail that would make it impossible for someone to have prepared before Yom Tov to take a haircut, like in his mother's womb. So therefore, he's someone who is allowed to take a haircut. Zok to Gemara. So what you're saying is that if the child was born on Chalamoid, but if the child was born before Yom Tov, where the child could have taken a haircut, or the parents could have given the child a haircut before Yom Tov, and they didn't, they would not be able to give the child a haircut on Yom Tov. Most of our Pinchas, based on this halacha, Frekra Pinchas Akasha legabe avelos. Kol elu she'amru muter legaleich b'moed. Any person that we've discussed that's allowed to take a haircut on Chalamoid, under those same conditions, muter legaleich b'mei evloi, such a person could also take a haircut when he's an awful. That's what the Pinchas said. So let's be medayik. If anybody who's allowed to be megaleich b'moed, to be megaleich b'mei evloi, so then on the flip side, we should say the same thing. Ha'asher legaleich b'moed, anybody who's not allowed to take a haircut on Chalamoid, such as a katan that was born before Chalamoid, asher legaleich b'mei evloi. So wouldn't that prove that a katan has dinei avelos? From Pinchas's halacha, coupled with the fact that we're saying that a katan that was born before Yom Tov may not take a haircut on Yom Tov, those two facts together tell us that there's an Isser Avelos. A katan has to comply with the rules of Avelos. A newborn, Vi Amrit, and if you're going to tell me, back on Yudal and Beis, Vi Amrit katan is by plukta, and if you're going to say that by a katan that makes a difference, Lagabi, if he's allowed to take a haircut on Chalamoid, between if he was born on Chalamoid or born before Yom Tov, where he's not allowed, well then, Nimtza Avelos Naheges B'katan. That means you're going to say that Avelos applies to a katan. Because if you follow through on Pinchas's rule that anybody who could take a haircut on Chalamoid could take a haircut when they're an oval, and therefore we make the reverse to it. Anybody who may not take a haircut on Chalamoid may not take a haircut when there's an oval. Well, that would indicate that in fact a katan is chayiv b'avelos. But Vatanya we learned that a katan is not mechuyev in avelos. Mekarin lekatan mipnei agmas nefesh. The only reason why we write kriya on the katan is only because sheyivku haroyin. I'm on the fourth line of Rashi. So people will see the little baby, the little child, the little katan is rising kriya. That's going to create a tremendous sadness amongst everybody. Sheyivku haroyin v'yirbu b'chavod hameis, and that's going to create a covenant of mace, everyone cries. But not because technically the child is an awful. So I'm Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi, no. Rav Pinchas only said it one way. He didn't say both ways. All Rav Pinchas said is if you're not mechuyev in avelos, if you're not also take haircut on Chalamoid, you're not mechuyev in avelos as well. You're allowed to take haircut when you're an awful. But it doesn't say on the flip side that if you are also to take a haircut, then you're also by avelos. That he never said. Mikatani ha'asurin, no. He just said whoever is allowed to take a haircut could take a haircut when they're a novel. But on the flip side, maybe not. Those who are not allowed to take a haircut on Chalamoid, there we don't have a direct link between their status legabe avelos. So I love Rabbi Akiva Eiger's on Gilyon Hashas. So there's a gewaltige Rabbi Akiva Eiger over here. Rabbi Akiva Eiger asks the following kasha. He asks the kasha. I believe he asks it directly on the Gemara. What type of kasha is that? What are we saying? We're saying that if you make the deal, so the katan is going to be usher to take a haircut. If a katan is going to be usher to take a haircut on Chalamoid, so that proves that it'll be usher for him to take a haircut because of avelos. That makes no sense at all. Let's see the Gilyon Hashas, the Turkin Gadol. Zok Kiveger, kashali. It makes no sense. I wouldn't say that at all. I would say even the katan loy shayach avelos. Since by a katan, the whole concept of avelos has no shaychus to a katan, he's put them in a mitzvahs. Ein ze yotzim in a klal. This is not going to contradict the diak that we're making from our Pinchas that everybody who's also to take a haircut on Halamoid has a din of Avelis, because it's true still. The Chol Sh'oseh B'Moed is also B'Mei Evloi. That's true. But the Yemei Evloi, Hainu B'Misha Hu Ovel. If you're an Ovel, you'll have all the Chiyuvim of Avelis. If you're not a Ovel, it's not going to be also for you to take a haircut. It's only also for you to take a haircut if you're a Ovel. Mashenkin Katan, they ain't an Ovel. A Katan is not an Ovel. A Katan does not become an Ovel. So the whole deek doesn't make sense. And even U'B'Moed, ain't no Isser ala Katan. There's no Isser for a Katan to take a haircut on Chalamoid. Rak al Hamigaleach. You're not allowed to give a Katan a haircut. But a Katan is not prohibited from everything. Aval ba'ovel. But if the Katan is an Ovel, even if he was an Ovel, the Hamigaleach ain't an Ovel, where the Megaleach is not an Ovel. So there's no Isser for the Megaleach. The al Katan like Isser. So v'tzorich li'in gadol, I don't understand what the havmin of the Gemara was to ask this kasha from the diet from our piths. Okay, zok the Gemara weiter. Zok the Gemara weiter. Ameimar b'tei Reb Shisha bar Davidi masni hachi. They had the same discussion, but they came at it from a different angle. Amar Shmuel, katan muter lagalche b'moed. You're allowed to give a katan a haircut on chalamoid. Even if this child was born before Yom Tov, where he could have taken a haircut before Yom Tov, you're still allowed to give a child a haircut on Chalamoid. Amar Pinchas, or Pinchas said, we have a right to this. And we make the same deal as before. If you would say that a cotton is asur to take a haircut at Chalamoid, then nimtus havelos nagas bekotton, the tanya mekar lekotton b'fnei shuach b'snefesh. So it's exactly the same kasha, except this time we're starting saying that a cotton is allowed to take a haircut on Chalamoid. Amar Bashi, the same teretz, mikatani hasurin dilma yesh meinasav yesh mutter. Just because you have a rule that whoever may take a haircut on Chalamoid may take a haircut by velos, it doesn't mean that you say the opposite as well. That one who may not take a haircut of Chalamoid automatically may not take a haircut by Velos. That is not necessarily true. The difference in the Lashon is a Katan that was born before Yom Tov, may he take a haircut on Yom Tov, yes or no? In the first Lashon he was not allowed to, in the second Lashon he was allowed. So in the first Lashon we had a kasha, in the second Lashon we had an attempted right. Okay. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. You know, the mother says, I want him to look good by his bris. He better take a haircut. Right? Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Avel ein noyeg avel, an avel ein noyeg avelusay beregel. An avel does not fear with a velus on Yom Tov. Shenemar, it says v'samachta b'chagecha. And Rashi says, Rashi does not say, but the Gemara learns. The Gemara learns just v'samachta b'chagecha, or does Tortus speak about it? No one speaks about it. But v'samachta, you have a chiyuv to be mesameach. So therefore, an oval is not mesimcha. So iavelus to meikarahu, if the avelus was from before Yom Tov, meaning he was already an oval, he lost his loved one already before Yom Tov, then also yasei the rabbim v'dochi yasei the yachid. The v'samachta b'chagecha, which is an asei the rabbim, Rashi's v'samachta, it'll be doiched asei the yachid. What the mitzvah says to be an oval, the chsiv evel yachid asilach. It's in Yirmiyah. So Tortus right away points, is there a mitzvah asay to be an oval? So Tortus says, the top Tortus, mashma davelos ika asay dairaisa, it's mashma that there's a mitzvah asay dairaisa to firzach vavelos. Midaloik amar v'dachi asay derabanan. It didn't say the asay dairaisa v'samachta as dachi the asay derabanan. It's mashma they're both dairaisas, but an asay derabim trumps an asay deyachid. V'hayda kamar le'il l'miboy l'yimei evla derabanan. That the Gemara says later that you may ever is derabanan, that's referring to the Isser Malacha when someone's a novel. That's also derabanan. But the chiyuv to fizich bavelos, that could be is a deraisa. Okay. Zok Tosfos miu nearly I grada hold the simchas haregel nami derabanan. The Ma'aser Tosfos says I have a little bit shvelch this whole thing because the simcha of regel is also only midirabanan anyway. I says v'samachta b'chagecha. That doesn't mean you have to be happy. That just means you have to bring karbanos, but there's no mitzvah that specifically would contradict the Vedas. So that's a technical difficulty that Tortus raises.
There is a specific mitzvah. As a matter of fact, it's held against us if we're not samech. You look at the second teichacha, tachas. It says tachas because you didn't.
That is special mitzvah on Yom Tov, or is that in general?
That okay? So there are in that parsha, even before the teichacha, there's like 3 or 4 places that say you got to do it b'simcha. So it is a specific.
It's probably a different simcha that you always have to have with all the mitzvahs versus the special simcha, which would not contradict the.
Yes, but one of the specific mitzvahs is on Yontif, to be sameach on Yontif. It's explicit.
And that's not the pasuk that Tortus is quoting of V'samachta b'chagecha?
No, okay. No, it is.
Right, but Tortus says that V'samachta b'chagecha means you have to bring karbanos. So it doesn't necessarily mean a level of simcha that would contradict the veils.
That's another mitzvah to bring karbanos.
But the Tortus learns that is the mitzvah of V'samachta. That's what Tortus is saying over here. So I guess there are those who argue at Tortus, but Tortus is saying V'samachta is the actual mitzvah that we learn from V'samachta is bringing karbanos. But at the end of the day, the Gemara does say that V'samachta contradicts Avelos.
Well, when in the Teichacha, when it says that Tachas loy, because you didn't serve Hashem, that doesn't mean karbonos.
Right, but that level of simcha that you have to have when you're doing all the mitzvahs, that might not be a level of simcha that would be contradictory to Avelos.
Okay, I'm not talking about all this.
No one's going to suggest that you're allowed to be novel.
Anyway, I'm not talking about being samech doing all the mitzvahs, just the mitzvahs where the Torah specifies you should do it b'simcha.
Oh, so when it says tachas lo yavata, it's only going on those specific mitzvahs.
I mean, according to me, anyway. But okay, I think that's pshat.
So you're learning that tzeicha is only coming because the mitzvahs that the Torah says needs to be done b'simcha, those mitzvahs you didn't do b'simcha.
That's
it's not
right.
referring to all the Torah.
That's right.
Oh, okay. I did not. It's very interesting. Okay. Yes, but they all contradict the V'samachta. We're in the middle of a sentence. The Gemara is going to say in a second. Iavelos to make who also said Racham Doche said the Yochid. The Avelos to Hashtahu, and even if it's a fresh Avelos that's starting right now, which is the most serious of it, because the first 3 days, also Lo'asi say the Yochid, the Doche say the Rabbim. Even for that, the Asay of the Yochid of Avelos would not be Doche the Asay of the Rabbim of the Samachta. Okay, but he started the Avelos. No. Even if the person loses his loved one on Chalamoid, so the Avelos is going to start on Yom Tov, we still say it's not doicha. So you're still not allowed to start Avelos because V'samachta b'chagecha will trump that. You can't start and you cannot continue. Right. But you can't continue because you started the Avelos. Forget it. You started the Avelos already. If there's different levels of Avelos in the Shiva. You started it, okay, the first day of the Avelos is completed, even if it's for an hour. And there, the rest of the Avelos is canceled because of the Sabbath. You haven't started the Avelos. Right. Okay, then you've got the whole Shiva that you continue on after the. Oh, then it's after, it gets pushed off to after, right, okay. Right, I hear it, that's right. Okay, so Zokma Manuta, what about somebody who's in the Chayim? Mao Sheyinik Nidui Berekel. Does he have to act with the restrictions of a menuda on Yom Tov? Rabbi Yosef Toshma, the halach is done in dinin nefashis. You're allowed to, Bezin's allowed to sit down to paskin on dinin nefashis. This is a phenomenal Gemara. Done in dinin nefashis. And it's a phenomenal Gemara with a phenomenal places. Done in the dinin nefashis. The Bezin's allowed to sit and convene the paskin dinin nefashis. V'dinim makis and dinim of oinshim and v'dinim omenis. This is on Chalamoid. So the Gemara, if the price is allowing to paskin these things, it must be not just beginning, it must be following through completely. So what is the halacha? What is the halacha if the Bezdin paskins you have to do something and you don't listen to the Bezdin? Misham tinulei, you put him into chayim, and that would be following through on the halacha that the Brisa says that you're allowed to done dinim amanis. V'solka daitach einay noig nidui v'regel. If you're going to tell me someone who's already in chayim will not be in chayim, it's relaxed for the Yom Tiv, well then mishumis for Asi meikara. Even if someone was already in chayim from last week, Asi regel v'dachilei, the Yom Tiv will push it away. Hashnu misham tinulei. Are you going to suggest that if they did it in Torah and someone's rebelling and not listening to Bezin, they'll put him in the chayim? Even if he was already in chayim, we knock off the chayim for Yom Tiv. So oy bazoi, you have a raya from here that in fact that a menuda must still be subject to hilchos nidui, even though it's Yom Tov. And therefore they could pass dinim amanis, because if he's not going to listen, they could put him into chayim. Would we put him into chayim if they would get out of their chayim, if they get a vacation from their chayim when Yom Tov comes? Amar le Abaye. Abaye asks Matish Kasha. The dilma le yuni b'dinei. Who said they have to follow through on the whole din? Maybe they start analyzing the din, but who said they have to follow through all the way, even to put him into chayim? And I'll prove it to you that that's what this Brisa must mean. Just starting the entire, but not necessarily following through to completion. The loitei mahachi, dinin nefashis. The Brisa says that they could do dinin nefashis. Dinin nefashis the katani hachanami the katlinalei. Are you going to say that if the paskin chayiv they're going to kill somebody on Chol Hamoed, they can't kill somebody on Chol Hamoed? Why can't they kill somebody on Chol Hamoed? Because of the kamimni misimcha Yom Tov. Because if they kill him on Yom Tov, the dayanim won't be able to have a suda on Yom Tov. The Tanya, Rabbi Kiva Aimer, Minayna Sanhedrin, Shehargu Sanefesh. If Sanhedrin kills a nefesh, Shein Toim and Koloi Sayoim, they're not eat that whole day. So the problem with killing somebody on Yom Tov is that the best won't be able to have a party that day. Talmud Loim Loi Soichlu Aladam. So look, Tortus makes it even schwerer. Tortus says, Mimni Misim Chashamtiv, Hikshu Tortus, I don't know who arose. Hechi Koshele, the Hamimni Misim Chashamtiv, Meyachilu Shtia, the Gemara is all worried about that the best won't be able to eat and drink, and that's the problem with Sim Chashamtiv. But his kasha is not what you think. They're not worried about the malacha. Forget the fact that the family is losing somebody is devastating. The problem is the halacha, but can't be done. How come that's not the kasha? The near leads of Tosfos, with the Aser Achmana, Havaris Bas Kohen b'Shabbos, since we said that on Shabbos they won't kill a Bas Kohen. It's just that she's mechuyev in shreifa, she's mizana, mechalal de b'moed shari. You see, it's not a malacha. Inami kivin shuri mitzvah l'tzorich yom tov krinevei. There's no problem we're killing somebody. The problem is after we kill somebody, Bezin won't be able to have Simchas Yom Tov. That's the problem. It's a very litvish sugya, no question about it.
Isn't this a problem for Tosfos? Because wouldn't this prove that there's a mitzvah of Onig Yantiv, Simchas Yantiv that goes beyond bringing the Korban Shalom? Sorry, the Korbanos. You have to eat. You can't fast.
Maybe they can't eat for the Korban.
No, but they can't eat anything, right? They can't eat and drink according to Rabbi Akiva. Now, how does Tosfos understand that? This would seem to say that there is a mitzvah.
Well, Tosfos has to agree there is, because the Gemara says that the Gemara is kasha. The Gemara says that. Tosfos is bringing up, but he's bringing up.
Would Tosfos say this is just midrabanan?
Well, Tosfos says that, but he can't argue on the Gemara. So Tosfos
understand. So would Tosfos understand this to be midrabanan? This isser to execute somebody on Yantiv, according to Tosfos, would just be midrabanan?
There is no issue. You forget you're allowed to kill somebody on Yom Tov.
They can't do it because they won't be able to have Simchas Yom Tov.
So let's see what the Gemara answers. So Ella, I stopped in the middle of the Gemara because I had to stop when we were talking about that the whole problem is Onig Yom Tov, but we have to let the Gemara finish. Ella Yuni B'dinei. So obviously it doesn't mean they're actually going to kill him. It means you're going to start looking into it. Hachanami, so too you don't have a raya that there's a problem with the menuda. Merely a menuda would go off. But the reason why they can have it entire is they look into it, but not necessarily putting somebody to cher. Amar lei, so he answered back, Im Kain, if you're going to say that you just started the entire but not finish it, well then nimtus ma'anas dina. Now what you're going to do is you're torturing the defendant. because now he has to wait till you paskin for him and it's being schlepped out. So that's more no, that's not the problem. It's not a problem because also mitzafra. First thing in the morning they start the entire and they start analyzing the din. Then before they paskin, they have lunch. And they have kiddush and they have onik Shabbos and onik Yom Tov and they can go sukkah hopping. They can have all the fun they want. And then after mincha, also right before shkiyas achama, and then the Gabrin and Ladina V'Kotlin, they'll kill him right there at the end. So they ended up not having a problem of onik Yom Tov. Rabbi Toshma. So let's try another raya. If a manuda doesn't have to follow the halachas of nidui on Chalamoid. Toshma, manuda shetir lechacham. That's one of the people who are allowed to take a haircut on Yom Tov. So the way we're learning now is manuda shehitir lechacham. Every manuda that the chachamim said, a manuda doesn't have to keep the isurim of nidui on Chalamoid. So you have a raya from our Mishnah because it says it straight out. Manuda shehitir lechacham. A manuda, the chachamim said that he doesn't have the restrictions of nidui on Chalamoid. Amar Rabba, that's not a raya. Mikatani shetiru chachamim. It doesn't say that the chachamim gave a blanket heter to all people who are menuda that on Yom Tov they don't have to follow the rules. It's shetiru loy chachamim katani. He got a special heter. Why did he get a special heter? Because he was released from his nidui. Why was he released from his nidui? The azalu paisel baldine. Because he paid up. He followed the entire, so the sanctions are removed. After he paid off and he listened to the Psaka Bezdin, he went back to the Rabbanan and he asked Mechila v'Sharle, and that's where they freed him. But it was a personal thing. But Avada Nidui would apply on Chalamoid, and the Gemara ends up not proving either way. Mitzayra ma'u sheyanik tzaraita bereva. A mitzayra, does he have to also be outside the machna and say Tami Tami Yikra? Does he have all the halachas of a mitzayra? Rashi says Shelo Yavei al Techamachna and V'lo Yigalayich. He can't take care. Amar by Toshma. It says in our Mishnah. It says Davka, if he's coming out of the Tumah, if he's coming out of his Nazirs, he's coming out of his Tiras. He'll be made Tamasoi. No. So you see from here that be made Tiraitoi, it's not Tiraita Bereva. So from our Mishnah, it would be Mashma that the holy Shiloh, if someone could take a haircut, is someone who's leaving his situation of Nidui. But somebody who's in this situation, he's still in Saras, he's not allowed to take haircuts. Maybe that's the dig you can make from our Mishnah. So let me buy Kamar. That's not the case at all. Rather, loy me buy to be made to also. The loy noig, it's pashut that if he's completely tamei, he still hasn't yet had his tahira as a mitzayra. He's allowed to take haircuts, and we relax the halachis of chalamoid for him. Aval l'tarasoi. But if he's becoming tar, and if he takes a haircut, he also has to bring karbonos. It's part of the process. Maybe only then we should restrict. You know why? Nigzer shema yisha karbonoisa. Once he takes the haircut because he's coming out of a taras, he has a chiyuv to bring a carbon, and he can bring the carbon to chalamoid, but he can't bring it on the last day of Yom Tov because that's Yom Tov mamish, and you can't bring personal karbonos on Yom Tov. You could bring it on chalamoid, and we're afraid you'll bring it the last day. So maybe because of that, we shouldn't let him take a haircut as well. Kamash long, you're allowed to. So once again, we don't have a raya. Maybe a mitzayra is allowed to come into the machane, and maybe a mitzayra can relax the halachas of the taras. Because a mitzayra who's becoming tar has to bring the carbon, and once he starts the process, he has to bring the carbon. And we're afraid he won't bring it on chalamoid. He'll leave it for the last day of Yom Tov and bring it then, and you're not allowed to bring the carbon. A little bit far-fetched, let's say. Amar Rava Tashma. It says in the pasuk about Tzarua Asher Boya Nega. The God of you, Ferumin, Veroshi, Perua, Balsafam Yata, the Tame Yikra. I only know this pasuk because it was my bris mitzvah parsha. So we learn from that Tzarua, the rabbi is Kohen Gadol. Even a Kohen Gadol is subject to all the Yisurim, all the halachas of Tzaras. Frank Gemara, but Kohen Gadol, the Chol Hashana Kerega, a Kohen Gadol has the status of a Yisrael on Yom Tov. How do I know a Kohen Gadol always has a status of a Yom Tov? That non Kohen Gadol makriv oinen. The halacha is someone who's an oinen may not send karbanos to the Beis Hamikdash. An oinen cannot bring karbanos, but a Kohen Gadol could always bring karbanos even if he's an oinen. Why? Because it must be shemamina, that it must be a Yom Tov for him. Since every day for a Kohen Gadol is like a Yom Tov, and the Kohen Gadol is subject to the halachas of nega, so it's a raya that nega tziras even applies beregel. So Tortus says a very interesting thing. The Kohen Gadol, the Chalashana Kula Karegel, mashma from this Gemara, dem ein menuda no dem ein menuda no you need regel. If you would say that because we had a shayla, does a menuda have to follow the rules by the regel? Because we just had the sugya, we didn't bring a riot to it. We tried to bring a riot, we couldn't bring a riot, but there's a shayla of a menuda is still subject to hilchos nida and yomtiv. Well, then who adin Kohen Gadol ein noig nidu klal. If that's the case, on the tzad that we had before, that a menuda doesn't have to stay in chayim during the Yom Tov, well then the Kohen Gadol should never be subject to nidu, because the Kohen Gadol is like he's always in Yom Tov, and that would be a raya to the previous shayla. Because we know the Kohen Gadol done v'don noisel. A Kohen Gadol is subject to the legal system, and they paskin on him. And if the Kohen Gadol didn't listen to the Bezdin, he was going to chayim. So therefore, it's going to be a little bit schwer, because based on this, you should have a raya from a Kohen Gadol as well that we don't relax the needle for Yom Tov. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll tomorrow. So what should we